Sometimes, to find yourself, you have to burn down the sanctuary. When Blake Shelton walked out that door, he left the dogs, he left Gwen, and he drove straight into a ghost story. The GPS data didn't lie. He was hiding out at the exact same cabin on Eufaula Lake where he used to hunt with Miranda Lambert back in 2010. Why did he go back there, and why did Kelly Clarkson publicly cover for him while the police were knocking on his unlocked front door? The truth is heartbreaking, and it's hidden in a receipt for beef jerky and a tank of gas. He went looking for a signal, but you won't believe what he actually found.
If you're calling about the car I sold it.
Imagine the scene on that porch for a second. It is the kind of Oklahoma darkness that feels heavy, the kind where the only light comes from the stars, and maybe the glow of a smartphone screen. The last Instagram story posted showed a half-empty bottle of Maker's Mark sitting on that railing. That bottle is the first clue. It wasn't staged. It wasn't a promotional shot for his vodka brand or some flashy ad. It was raw. It was the sign of a man who was sitting there, thinking about something much heavier than a TV show contract or a tour schedule. You have to put yourself in his boots. You have spent a decade living a life that doesn't fit your roots, constantly under the lights, constantly smiling for the camera. You get tired. Your soul gets tired. And that bottle was his only company. But here is where it gets crazy. The silence didn't just last for the night. It stretched into Tuesday, then into Wednesday. This is where the timeline gets messy and the panic starts to set in. You see, when you are that famous, you don't just get to take a day off without telling anyone. There are people whose entire livelihoods depend on knowing where you are every single second of the day. Gwen's team in Los Angeles was staring at a deadline. They needed a signature. They needed confirmation. Instead, they got a dead signal and a ghost town. They were calling, texting, probably sending emails that were bouncing back from a phone that was turned off. The panic in that camp must have been suffocating.
I thought it was the best thing that ever happened to you.
By Wednesday morning, the tension had snapped. We are talking about the Tulsa County Sheriff fielding not one, but 3 separate welfare check calls. Think about the level of panic required for that. One call came from Kelly Clarkson. You know Kelly, she is the glue that holds that friend group together. She is the one who jokes, who laughs, who keeps it light. If Kelly is calling the cops, something is genuinely wrong. She isn't the type to overreact. The second call came from Gwen's high-powered lawyer. That is not a call made out of friendship. That is a call made out of liability. That is a suit trying to protect a client. The third call was the one that should scare you. It came from a neighbor, a local. Someone who knows the rhythm of the ranch better than the paparazzi ever could. They saw the barn lights were off. For a rancher, the barn lights are a signal. If they are off, and the truck is gone, and the dogs aren't barking, the soul of the place is missing. It's like a lighthouse going dark. Deputies were dispatched immediately. Now, picture this drive, the dust kicking up behind the cruiser, the gravel crunching under the tires as they pull up to that massive gate. They knock. Nothing. No answer. They check the perimeter. The front door is unlocked. That is the detail that sends shivers down your spine. An unlocked door in the middle of nowhere usually means someone left in a hurry. Or someone didn't plan on coming back.
Keep playing them songs, keep singing along, keep leaning in.
They found the dogs boarded at the vet. This is the detail that changes the narrative from a crime scene to a calculated escape. If the dogs are safe, the man had a plan. He didn't flee in a panic. He prepared. He made sure the things he loved were taken care of, and then he cut the cord. Incident report number 2025-4721 was logged into the system. It wasn't entered as a missing person case yet, but in this digital age, nothing stays secret. Radioline ran the headline, "Police report filed," before the deputies even made it back to the station. The rumor mill went into overdrive. The internet started doing what it does best, which is inventing tragedies. People were speculating about a health crisis. Some said kidnapping. Others whispered about a sudden divorce filing. But the truth was hidden in the data. You see, in 2025 you can't truly disappear. Your truck talks to satellites. Your credit card talks to banks. And sometimes, a former ranch hand talks to the tabloids. We are going to show you exactly where that truck went, but you have to understand the emotional weight of the destination. This wasn't just a drive to the store. This was a journey into the past. But before we get to the map, let's talk about the pressure cooker that leads a man to do this. You have watched them on TV for years. The banter, the laughter, the seemingly perfect blending of two worlds. But oil and water only mix when you shake them hard enough. Eventually, they separate. The rumors had been swirling for months about financial disagreements. The emergency asset motion Gwen's team was filing wasn't public knowledge until this moment. That piece of paper was the spark that lit the fuse. Imagine being handed a document that defines your marriage in terms of dollars and cents. It forces you to look at your life not as a romance, but as a business arrangement. That is a hard pill to swallow for a guy who writes songs about dirt roads and simple living. The psychological toll of that cannot be overstated. It triggers a flight response. It makes you want to find a place where the lawyers can't reach you.
If it's real, well, I don't want to know.
So, the phone goes dead at 9:12 p.m. He walks out to the truck. It is a 2024 Ford Raptor, a beast of a machine. He climbs in, he doesn't turn on the radio, he just listens to the engine turn over. That sound is freedom. He puts it in drive and he hits the gas. He leaves the lights of the ranch behind him. He drives past the spot where he and Gwen planted those peach trees. He drives past the memories of the last 10 years. And he heads east. This changes everything we thought we knew about their dynamic. We always assumed he was the happy, go-lucky one, the one who rolled with the punches. But everyone has a breaking point. The silence from his camp during those 72 hours was deafening. Gwen's camp was dropping cryptic hints, trying to control the narrative, but they couldn't control the fear. You could see it in the way Kelly spoke on her show later. That guarded look in her eyes. She knew something we didn't. She knew that this wasn't just a temper tantrum. The media storm was gathering like a tornado on the plains. Helicopters were refueling to start grid searches. Fans were organizing search parties online. The hashtag FemWearsBlake was trending #1 globally, and all the while, he was just driving. Just a man in a truck, watching the white lines tick by. He was trying to outrun the noise in his head. The isolation of the road is a powerful thing. It gives you time to think. Maybe too much time. You have to wonder what he was thinking about during those 187 miles. Was he thinking about the motion? Was he thinking about the future? Or was he thinking about the past? The destination he chose tells us the answer. He wasn't looking for a new start. He was looking for an old feeling. He was looking for a version of himself that existed before the Hollywood lights got so bright. It's human nature to go back to where you started when you get lost.
For something bound to fall apart.
The connection to Miranda is the elephant in the room. We haven't talked about it yet, but we have to. The location revealed by the GPS data isn't random. It is specific. It is a remote cabin on Eufaula Lake. This isn't a place Gwen goes. This isn't a place the new Hollywood friends go. This is a place where he used to hunt in 2010. It is a place that holds ghosts. When you go back to a place like that, you are inviting those ghosts to sit down and have a drink with you. DailyFame radar obtained the OnStar data. It leaked like a sieve. A former ranch hand, someone who probably felt slighted or just needed the cash, sold the coordinates. And suddenly, the world had a map to his hiding spot. But they didn't have the context. They saw a dot on a screen. We see a man trying to find his footing. By Wednesday morning, while the deputies were knocking on his front door, Blake was already settled in. He wasn't dead. He wasn't kidnapped. He was fishing. But it wasn't a relaxing fishing trip. Trail cam stills that surfaced later show a silhouette. It matches his 6'5" frame perfectly. He is standing at the edge of the water. It is 4:47 a.m. The sun hasn't even cracked the horizon yet. The water is black and still. This image is haunting. He isn't casting with joy. He is casting with intensity. There are no booze bottles visible in the shot. That is the detail that proves this was about clarity, not escapism. There is only a thermos. Probably black coffee, maybe just water. He is standing there, alone in the dark, trying to wash away the stress of the last 3 days. You look at that image and you realize something deep. Money doesn't fix everything. Fame doesn't fix everything. Sometimes, the only thing that fixes a broken spirit is the sound of a lure hitting the water. The contrast between the chaos in Los Angeles and the stillness of Eufaula Lake is jarring. In LA, lawyers are billing $500 an hour to file motions.
You makes you stronger, stand a little tall.
At the lake, the only cost is the time you spend waiting for a bite. The media was spinning out of control. They were reporting that the police report was the first step in a criminal investigation. They were wrong. It was a welfare check. But the damage was done. The headline, "Police report filed," is something that sticks. It stains. It creates a narrative of instability that is hard to shake. Gwen's team knew this. That is why they were frantic. They weren't just worried about his safety, they were worried about the brand. And that is the tragedy of it all. Even in his disappearance, he was a commodity. But here is the thing about Blake. He has never played by the rules of the commodity game. He plays by his own rules. Leaving the dogs at the vet was his way of saying, I am not coming back for a few days, and I don't care who gets mad about it. It was a rebellion. A quiet, calculated rebellion against the machine that his life had become.
Why you have to go and make me like you?
The neighbor who saw the lights off knew. Country people know when something shifts in the air. They didn't call the cops to get him in trouble. They called because they care. That is the difference between his Oklahoma life and his Hollywood life. In Oklahoma, they check on you because you are a neighbor. In Hollywood, they check on you because you are an asset. That realization must have hit him hard during that drive. As Wednesday turned into Thursday, the world held its breath. The silence was still unbroken. No tweets, no Instagram stories, no press releases, just the dead air. It creates a vacuum. And into that vacuum, people pour their own fears. Fans were terrified. They thought we had lost another legend. But the truth was much simpler and much more complicated. He was just a guy, standing on a bank, fishing in the dark, trying to remember who he was before the world told him who to be. The GPS data shows the truck didn't move for almost 48 hours. He parked it and he stayed put.
God gave me you.
He didn't go into town for supplies. He didn't visit friends. He isolated himself completely. That level of isolation is rare. It takes discipline. It takes a desperate need for silence. Think about the last time you went 48 hours without speaking to a single soul. It changes your brain chemistry. It resets you. This story isn't about a missing person. It is about a missing piece of a soul. Gwen's emergency motion was the catalyst, but the explosion had been building for years. The pressure to be the perfect couple, the perfect judge on The Voice, the perfect country star. It adds up, and sometimes the valve has to release. The valve released on that Monday night at 9:12 p.m. But what happens when the 72 hours are up? You can't stay at the lake forever. The real world is still waiting. The lawyers are still waiting. The motion is still on the desk. Eventually, you have to reel in the line, pack up the thermos, and start the truck. The drive back is always harder than the drive away. The drive away is fueled by adrenaline and escape. The drive back is fueled by reality. In part 2, we are going to break down the return. We are going to look at the receipt that proved he was alive, the condition he was in when the paparazzi finally caught him, and the cryptic tweet that explained it all. We will also dive into the aftermath. What happened when he walked back through those ranch doors and faced Gwen? The asset freeze motion was dropped, but the questions remain. Did he find what he was looking for at Miranda's old spot? Or did he just find more ghosts? The road home is long, and the hardest part is just beginning. Part 2, the journey back, is always longer than the escape. It's heavier too. Thursday at 6 p.m., the white Ford Raptor pulled into the Okama Shell station. This is the moment reality crashed back in. You have to picture the scene. This isn't a red carpet. This is a dirty gas station forecourt with flickering fluorescent lights. The credit card receipt tells a story all on its own. It didn't show bottles of whiskey or expensive champagne. It showed beef jerky and a tank of gas. That is the diet of a man who is running on fumes, both literally and metaphorically. He wasn't feasting. He was surviving. He was just getting enough fuel to make it those last few miles home.
You're getting over him, and I'm getting over her.
When the paparazzi finally caught him, the images were shocking. This wasn't the polished, smiling face you see on album covers. He was unshaven. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked like he had been through a war. And in a way, he had. A war with his own thoughts. He refused to answer questions. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He just pumped the gas, got back in the truck, and slammed the door. That slam echoed louder than any press statement could. It was a message, back off. It was a boundary set by a man who had run out of patience. But here is where it gets interesting. The timing of his return coincided almost perfectly with the legal maneuvering back in Los Angeles. Within hours of that credit card transaction hitting the banking system, Gwen's camp dropped the freeze motion. It disappeared as quickly as Blake had. This tells us that a communication channel had finally been opened. Someone spoke to someone. Maybe he called from the road. Maybe the simple act of buying gas was the signal they were waiting for.
Oh, I can't believe it. How good it can be.
The message was clear. I'm alive. I'm coming home. Drop the lawyers. The tweet he posted later that night is the key to unlocking the psychology of this entire event. Sometimes you gotta get lost to find the signal. Read that again. It is cryptic, sure, but it is also profoundly honest. He wasn't talking about cell phone reception. He was talking about his internal compass. He felt lost in the noise of his own life, and he had to physically remove himself from the grid to find his direction again. Think about the connection to the cabin on Eufaula Lake again. Why there? Why a place tied to a past life? Psychologists will tell you that when people feel their identity slipping away, they return to the start. They return to places where they felt most like themselves. For Blake, that lake, that specific spot where he hunted with Miranda back in 2010, represents a time before the mega fame exploded. It represents a time when things were simpler, even if they weren't perfect. He needed to touch that ground again to ground himself. It wasn't about the ex-wife. It was about the ex-life.
I still remember the presents.
Gwen's reaction to this is crucial. Dropping the motion suggests she understood the message. It suggests that she realized pushing him with legal papers was only going to push him further away. Relationships at that level are a chess match. She made an aggressive move with the asset motion. He countered with the ultimate defensive move, vanishing. She realized she was losing the game, so she flipped the board. She stopped the legal attack to save the personal connection. That takes a lot of swallow your pride. Kelly Clarkson's role in this cannot be ignored. When she went on her talk show and said, "He's safe, just needed dirt road therapy," she was doing damage control, yes. But she was also translating for him. She was telling the suburban moms and the pop fans what country people already knew. Sometimes, a man just needs dirt. He needs to disconnect to reconnect. Kelly bridged the gap between the terrified public and the silent cowboy. She played the role of the peacemaker in a public war. Let's go deeper into the dirt road therapy concept. It sounds cute on a talk show, but the reality is gritty. It means sitting in silence until your ears stop ringing. It means staring at a fishing line until your heart rate slows down. It isn't a spa day. It is survival. The bloodshot eyes the paparazzi saw weren't from partying. They were from lack of sleep, from staring into a fire, from crying, maybe. We forget that these icons are human. They bleed, they hurt. They get overwhelmed. The trail cam footage of him casting that line at 4:47 a.m. is the most vulnerable we have ever seen him. There was no audience, no applause, just the splash of the lure. That solitude is what he was fighting for. He was fighting for the right to be alone with his own thoughts without a lawyer or a manager present. And he had to scare the hell out of everyone to get it. Now, you have to ask yourself what happens next. He is back on the ranch. The dogs are back from the vet.
From deep in this family tree.
The lights are back on. But is everything back to normal? You can't unring a bell. You can't unvanish for 3 days. That gap in time exists now. It is a scar on the timeline of their marriage. Every time he walks out the door now, Gwen is going to wonder, is he coming back? That trust is fractured. It's like a plate that's been glued back together. It holds food, but you can still see the cracks. The leaked GPS data is out there forever. The world knows his secret spot now. He can never go back there with the same anonymity. He burned his sanctuary to save his sanity. That is a high price to pay. It shows just how desperate he was. He sacrificed his safe haven just to get a few breaths of air. And what about the asset motion? It was dropped. But the issues that caused it didn't vanish. They are just buried under the relief of his return. They are ticking time bombs waiting for the next crisis.
I must be dreaming. You're gone.
The police report rumor turned out to be technically true. A report was logged, but the context was twisted. The media wanted a scandal. They got a tragedy of a different sort. A tragedy of exhaustion. This entire saga, from the dead phone to the beef jerky receipt, serves as a wake-up call. It is a reminder to all of us. The people we put on pedestals are often standing on crumbling foundations. We consume their lives as entertainment, but for them, it is survival. Blake didn't disappear to hurt Gwen. He disappeared to save Blake, and in doing so, he reminded us all that sometimes, the only way to move forward is to stop completely. The ending of this story hasn't been written yet. The tweet was a period at the end of a sentence, but the paragraph is still going. Find the signal.
Did he find it?
Or did he just get a weak bar of service that will drop again the next time the wind blows?
Heard that I was starting over with some.
The look in his eyes at the gas station suggests the latter. He found a temporary peace, but the storm is still raging. You look at the timeline, May 12th to May 15th, and it seems short. But for Gwen, waiting by the phone, it must have felt like a lifetime. For Blake, sitting in that cabin, it probably felt like a blink of an eye. Time works differently when you are in crisis, and make no mistake, this was a crisis. It was a cry for help disguised as a fishing trip. So, the next time you see a headline about a celebrity looking disabled or acting strange, remember the Okama Shell station. Remember the thermos. Remember the silence. Maybe they aren't spiraling. Maybe they are just trying to find the signal. Maybe they are just trying to survive the noise that we created for them. This changes how we should look at his future music. If he releases a song about a cabin, or a lake, or a drive, listen closely. He is telling you the truth now. He is giving you the coordinates to his soul, just like that leak gave us the coordinates to his truck. The question is, are we listening to the signal, or are we just watching the static? The motion is gone, the truck is parked, but the engine is still warm, and the road is always there, waiting. That is the thing about cowboys. They always know where the exit is, and now, thanks to a leak and 3 days of panic, so do we. We have peeled back the layers of this disappearance, but the core remains a mystery. What exactly was said in that cabin? What memories of 2010 came flooding back? That is something only the walls of that cabin know. And they aren't talking, but Blake is back. For now. And in the world of fame, for now, is the best guarantee you are ever going to get. If you think this is the end of the drama, you aren't paying attention. This was just the intermission.
I'm doing my best to be sensible.
The second act is about to start, and the stakes are higher than ever, because now everyone knows that he is capable of leaving. And that changes the power dynamic forever. The signal has been found, but keeping it that is the hard part.
This is God's country.